knowing when you're being lied to is such a useful skill, and you can actually master that skill, but you will not master that skill if you're worried about micro expressions in the face or blink rates. It's just not going to happen.
What does it take to master that type of skill? Like learning how to essentially interrogate somebody?
Well, it's not interrogation because they're not a captive audience.
Right.
What you have to do is you have to learn how to assess verbal and nonverbal cues.
Okay.
And that's something that we teach. My company teaches that. I teach that to people all the time.
Cool.
It's just a matter of understanding how people work, how the brain works, and how people respond to different types of questions. And then you just kind of set up a system of asking certain types of questions and seeing what the response is and how that response varies from the baseline that was set the last time you asked that kind of question.
It's interesting. I would love to get into more of that in a future episode for sure. There's one, Dr. Daniel Lieberman. Do you know who he is?
I've heard that name too.
Man, he's so good at this. And one of the tricks that I remember from his episode, I should re-listen to my own episode. One of the tricks I remember was he said, when you think somebody's lying to you, fill in the reason that they did the thing. So if it's like your teenager was late. Why were you late coming home? Was it because of the water main break? Right? Instead of why were you late coming home, and they're like, no reason. You say, was it because of the water main break? And then what a liar will do is hesitate because they're like, shit, should I agree with that? Or should I disagree with that? And that hesitation shows you they're lying. But if they're not lying, you go, were you late? Were you late because of the water main break? I don't know. There was just a shitload of traffic. That's all. Is there a water main break? Is that why there was traffic? They're probably not lying. But the hesitation, which you really cannot turn off manually unless you are extremely skilled, that's the killer, and that's the indicator.
I mean, a similar example to that is asking people what we call emotional questions. Ask someone how they feel, because you know what happens is when you ask someone how they feel, they recall the feeling, right? Like, how did you feel when your son was born? Like, you know exactly how you felt.
Sure.
It's on your face that you can remember exactly how you feel.
I'm trying really hard not to smile with this part of the conversation. I was like, I'm going to throw him a curveball and not do anything. Like, dang, this guy's a cold bastard. Doesn't even care when his son was born.
But what ends up happening is when you ask an emotional question, the first response is always the true response. Like,
I see.
You can see it in their face that they're remembering the real feeling. But then the hesitation is when they assess, should I tell them the real feeling or should I make a different feeling up? And then you can see that transition too. Because you can see from the relaxed face to the thoughtful face to then they make a decision and then they actually say something.
You know, it's interesting that it's also hesitation based. I mean, maybe this just happens to be because it's also hesitation, the example I gave you.
That's what made me realize.
That's
what made me come up with the example. Like, that hesitation is a true tell.
It's really hard to break it, right? So it's a true tell. Yeah, that does make sense. That's an interesting point. It's very, even if you are, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to get tricky with this Lieberman thing, this little technique. It is very difficult. You have to rehearse that lie and think of all these different things they might ask you, or you have to decide, I'm going to say this no matter what, but if it doesn't make sense, then it's weird as hell.
And that's what you're looking for.
Right, and you're looking for that too, if you're smart. Yeah, that's fascinating.